Hello! Today I want to talk about the importance of taking inspired action. Now, if you've been watching my videos over the past couple of weeks here, I've been doing a bit of a mini-series on the 7 key decisions of success written about in the book Successful Women Think Differently by Valorie Burton. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend that you add it to your reading list. If you want to know why, definitely go back and watch some of my other videos on the 7 key decisions of success. I'll just say it's an invaluable self-coaching resource that I think every woman should have a copy of. So anyhow, in the beginning of the book, Valorie lays out what she calls 7 key decisions of success, and these are guiding principles that lay a foundation for all of the content that comes later in the book. So I've gone over the first 6, but in this video I'll be talking about the 7th, which is I know my purpose and take daily action toward my vision. I want to read a quick passage from the book. It's actually really short, and Valorie says this: consistency is key. If you continually take steps in the right direction, you will eventually arrive at your destination. Consistent action yields consistent results. So that is very self-explanatory. Consistency is everything, because sometimes it's very difficult just to get started, right? Because we're asking all these questions about what is the right direction. And then after we take that initial step and get started, how do we maintain the results that we achieve, right? And so that's what this particular decision of success is all about. So in particular, Valorie mentions the right direction, and I want to talk about that for a second. What is the right direction? You know, it's interesting that this is a question I think we'll ask ourselves forever. If you're on any type of journey of personal growth, if you're running a business, starting a business, no matter what you're doing, if you're parenting, no matter where you are in life and what you're doing, we'll always be asking, is this the right direction for me? And I've found a few ways on my journey that have been helpful to answer that, because you're going to ask that question before you start something that's important to you, and that can either go a couple ways. One, you can take the action and find out if it's right for you, or you might procrastinate and think about it some more. And so I've come up with 5 steps, I guess you can say, that have been helpful for me on my journey to ask about, is this the right direction, and to be able to come up with a definite yes, or a maybe not, probably not, or definite no. And so the first way is to know what your vision is. I'm a big proponent of having a vision for what you want. If you don't have a big picture idea, then how are you going to have any type of context for any of the goals you set, the decisions you make, the relationships you enter, the kind of friendships and the network you build, the way that you approach health? Like, how are you going to be able to make decisions in a way that's consistent with who you are when you don't have a clear picture of what it is that you ultimately want to achieve? So I have an excellent free resource. If you haven't really taken time to write out a vision statement for yourself, that's totally okay. I have a free workbook called the Create Your Vision Workbook. You can find that at rohiniwellness.com/vision, and I will also put a link to that in the description of this video. And so that's going to walk you through 4 steps to outline a vision for your life. You'll look at where you are now and map out the gap between here and where it is that you want to be. You'll outline a couple steps that you can take to get started moving toward that vision. But yes, the first step is to have a vision. Know what it is that you want. Your vision is not based in reality per se. It is based on desire, right? So if time wasn't an issue, if money wasn't an issue, if health wasn't an issue, location wasn't an issue, if there were no issues, no limitations, what do you want to feel? What do you want to experience in your health, your relationships, your lifestyle, your career, your finances, all these different areas? So that's what vision is about. The second way to ask and answer, is this the right direction for me, is to be clear on what your values are. Your values are fundamental drives that are rooted into your core identity. And these are the things that motivate all of your behaviors, whether it's, a very big external behavior or just a decision within. And your values are not necessarily traits that you pick from a list of good qualities that you'd like to embody. And no, your values are actually rooted in your current lifestyle, your behavior, your environment. So the way your life is and where you are right now is a reflection of your values. And when you can identify what those are, then when you come into a situation with a person, a place, a thing, a circumstance, an idea, you'll be able to know this is definitely in alignment with me or this is definitely not. It makes that ability to make your yes and your no very, very clear when you know exactly what your core values are. Now, values tend to remain constant for the most part throughout life. They don't usually change unless there's some kind of major shift or transition, like maybe job loss, loss of a loved one, a divorce, a big geographical move, a spiritual awakening, maybe childbirth or becoming an empty nester, something like that, where there's a major shift in your life circumstances usually can shift your values a bit. So there is another excellent free resource available to help you determine what your values are, and that is Dr. John Demartini's value determination process. So I'll link that in the description of this video as well. So know your vision, know your values. The next thing you want to make sure you know are your strengths, your character strengths. These are personality traits, if you will, that determine the way that you show up and how you interact with people, and kind of they're the things that make you unique, the secret sauce that makes you you. It determines your work ethic, the way that you work, the way that you organize things, the way that you organize your thoughts, the way you communicate and interact with people. So knowing what your strengths are, just like knowing what your values are, is a big part of self-awareness, because if you don't know what your strengths are, you might be in a job or create a business for yourself that is not really aligned with your strengths. And so then when it comes time where maybe that thing that you're doing should be delegated out to someone else, you'll try to take it on yourself and maybe fail, not realizing that maybe this is not one of your strengths, and this is one of the areas where you can hire somebody or bring in some assistance, an intern or whatever. So knowing your strengths helps you to know where to put yourself and where not to put yourself. And again, answering that, is this the right direction for me? Another thing I'll say about strengths are, it's interesting in relationship how strengths show up, because sometimes you can feel that you're incompatible with a person, and maybe there's just this competitiveness, right? And so it's a lot of arguing, going back and forth, and maybe it's not maybe it's not a compatibility issue. It might just be that someone has a very awesome strength of competitiveness, and rather than using that in their business or in their work or their hobby, a sport or whatever, they have it turned up too high in the relationship. So once you know what your strengths are, you can adjust the levels so that they work for you, so that you can have more satisfaction in your life, and also make sure that you're putting yourself in positions where you can really shine. So you know your visions, you know your value, you know your vision, you know your values, you know your strengths. The next thing, you want to just get clear on what you're passionate about. You can have multiple things that you're passionate about, and not every passion needs to be monetized per se. That's not the point. But knowing what you're passionate about helps you to remember what makes you happy. And if you're not happy, it doesn't matter how many of your strengths you're using for something, then it's not going to be very sustainable. That consistency portion that Valerie's talking about is going to be so hard for you to be consistent if you're miserable doing something. Eventually you're going to burn out and have to go back to the drawing board, which is your vision, right? And get that clarity. So your vision, values, strengths, you know what you're passionate about now. The final step is to take inspired action. The only way to know if something's going to work for you and is in alignment with you is to try it. You got to take that first step. You might fail, you might face rejection, you might succeed. And the point is to gain that awareness about yourself and use the confidence, the lessons that you gain from whatever it is that you do, to power you forward to the next step, so that you can continue living in alignment with what's most important to you. These decisions of success are really about helping you to take all of the information and lessons that you gather throughout life and use them to your maximum benefit. And if you can find a way to take inspired action, be consistent, and be in alignment with who you are, you will be unstoppable and happy. And there's nothing more important than happiness. So I'll catch